Welcome. We're here to do some training on a WA270 Komatsu loader, and we're getting ready for snow season and preparing for training for operating a hydraulic broom or a snow pusher on this loader. So first of all, I'm going to go through the procedure, what we would do on a walk around, and then an in-cab inspection in order to operate this broom. And then we'll go through how to change the broom and do some hydraulic settings and stuff. So as we walk up to the loader, I've got Rick in there. Rick, can you turn the lights on? So working in high traffic situations, we want to check for all the lights and flashers are all working. We always operate with our flashers on when we're working at UPS or doing snow removal. So we double check all the flashers are working. We double check the windshield, make sure it's not cracked. We always make sure we got a good windshield wiper in these situations. As we walk around the unit, we come around here, we want to double check that our back lights are working and the back flashers are working. So to check the oil in this machine and the motor, we open this dipstick, check the oil, make sure it's in the hatched area of the dipstick. Looks like we're good to go. Always check anything else loose or broken. To put the hood back down, gotta move the lever forward. While we're here, it's a good time to check the hydraulic oil. This one is actually low. This should be at halfway in the sight glass. So this is where you check the hydraulic oil on these Komatsu WA270 loaders. Coming on up, one real hard thing to find is where you put the DEF fluid, the diesel exhaust fluid. This is your gauge on the DEF, and this is where you insert the DEF. While we're at the back of the machine, this is where you put fuel, diesel fuel in these loaders. As we continue around the machine, we always check that the meters are free of ice before we start our shift. And as we come up here, we always double check that our attachment, the pins, the cylinder is extended in and is connected to the broom. And these are our hydraulic couplings, which we'll show you here in a second, that run the machine. The other thing we're going to show you here in just a little bit is the legs on the broom in order to store the broom, or when you're off shift, these legs drop down to support it so it don't mess the bristles up on the broom. Another important thing I want to show you all is this apparatus. This is what tells the level of the broom when you're operating it. These brooms are only to be operated when they're level. Some key points to look at on these brooms that are historic for braking are right here. You always need to check your broom for all your welds. I even see a crack on this one here. These brooms are historically known for cracking in several of these little locations, so double check those. We're going to begin the in-cab portion of this. We want to make sure we're always doing 3 points of connection when we're traveling up the ladder. The first thing we're going to do when we get in the operator seat is we're going to put the seatbelt on. Next thing we're going to do is start the machine. Always confirm that the forward neutral button is in neutral. I always put my foot on the brake. Confirm the parking brake is on. The red button forward. Once the machine is running, we are going to engage the hydraulics by pulling on this and pushing it forward. Now we can operate our hydraulics. The next thing we're going to talk about is the auxiliary hydraulics. The auxiliary hydraulics is what rotates the broom. So in order to rotate the broom, the auxiliary hydraulics must be on. If you look at the screen, there is a rectangle right there with a hydraulic drip of oil. When I hold this button down, this rotation light comes on. That means the broom is spinning. When you're looking at the broom, it should be throwing the snow forward. It should rotate underneath forward. In order to get the hydraulics to lock in place, you got to hold down on that button for approximately 3 to 5 seconds to get that little screen spinning. Once you do that, they'll stay on until you turn them off by simply hitting the button in either direction. If you get in the loader and the hydraulics are not working correctly, you do not see that block there, that indicates that somebody has not set the machine up to run the auxiliary hydraulics. In order to do that, you're going to go into the computer. You're going to press this button here 2 times. Then we're going to go down on the screen to attachment settings, and we're going to press the check mark. Once we've done that, we're going to select attachment 1. The reason we're selecting attachment 1 is because you see that little bitty thing there that has a square box, a rectangle box? These all have triangle boxes. The rectangle box means that is continuous flow hydraulics. So this one's set at 37 gallon a minute, which would be typical good for a hydraulic broom. So attachment 1, I'm selecting that, and then I'm going to just press, I'll just press the back key. It takes me back out here. As you can see, my rectangle is indicated with the hydraulic drop. Back to if I want to just check my broom out, I simply hold down my button for about 3 seconds. The circle thing starts rotating on there. Another thing I'd like for y'all to watch is on the gauges. This is your transmission or hydraulic oil temperature gauge. We want to watch that. Sometimes when running brooms, your hydraulic oil can get hot. Obviously, this is your engine temperature, and this is your fuel gauge. If you look real close, this little emblem right here is your amount of DEF. And it's full right now, but it's hard to see that, but that's your DEF gauge, your DEF, diesel exhaust fluid. A couple other things to note on these is, in order to put the loader in gear, you must disengage the parking brake, which is this red button here. Then I generally would start out on first or second. You see this knob here, you can rotate first, second, or third, or fourth. So then you would put it in, actually there's 2 ways to put it in gear. So there's this button here, forward and reverse. If you turn that off, that's going to allow you to use the traditional method of putting it in gear. That's the traditional method for putting it in gear with the shuttle shift lever. If you choose to utilize the forward and reverse portion of the joystick, you press this FR button, engages the yellow switches to put that forward and reverse. So this really gives you 2 options to go forward. You can't use both in conjunction or it will beep at you all the time. Once again, this was your parking brake. So we would disengage the parking brake. And then if we have this FR switch engaged, we would simply put it in forward. And when you're running a hydraulic broom, it requires volume of fluid flowing to the broom. So you're going to want to run in a lower gear, like first gear or second gear, so you can keep the RPMs of the motor at a high range so that it's running the broom more effectively and efficiently. You don't want to run the machine in like a third gear and a low speed of RPMs for the motor. It bogs the broom down and overheats the hydraulics. So you're going to want to run in first or second and then run your continuous flow hydraulics. so that you can utilize the broom effectively, because it throws the snow farther and it's easier on the hydraulics to run like that. The next thing I'd like to do is show y'all how to properly operate this broom. So the first thing we're going to do is these brooms only operate correctly when they're running level. So as you can see, he's rotating the broom up and down. This indicator here tells you if the broom is level or not. But really what I look at is I look at how level these parallel arms right in here. So Rick, if you'll rotate it out, tilt it out a little bit. Now let it down. Let it down a little more. Right there. So as you can see, those bars are running pretty well level right now. It's got a little too much pressure on it though. We want that broom to just barely be touching the ground. Rick, raise it up just a little bit. Yeah, let it down now just a little bit. Yep, okay. Rick, will you go ahead and turn the broom on? So we raise it up just a hair. Down just a shade. So we're wanting that broom to just barely touch the concrete. Otherwise we're getting unnecessary wear, okay? Everybody needs to see that rotation. You're always kicking the snow out when he rotates. Rotate the broom one more time, Rick. Always rotate it out, okay? So as you can see, the parallel arms need to be level. The broom needs to barely touch the ground. And like I said, you're gonna wanna run in a low gear with a high RPM to be able to kick the snow away from you. Next thing I wanna show you all is every 2 hours, we need to rotate the direction of the broom. So this broom is angled. We only utilize the first 2 spaces on our brooms because we don't want them angled at a severe amount. So every 2 hours we'll pull the pin, we'll have the broom elevated, we'll rotate it the other way. Rick, you want to lift it up real quick? Rotate it the other way. Align the holes. We'll need to make sure we get a clip on that. The next thing that I'd like to do is show you all how to properly take the broom off of the loader. So the first thing you're going to do is you're going to lead the broom up just a little bit or have somebody help you. Rick, will you lift it up a little bit? Put that leg down. That leg down. Bring your clip in. The next thing we're going to do is we're going to shut the loader off. Then we're going to disconnect these 2 hydraulic lines. I usually move it to make sure that it don't have a whole lot of pressure on it. That tells me that the line don't have a whole lot of pressure when it's kind of free. We rotate and pull back the quick coupler. Lay it on that side. We come to this side, rotate, pull back on quick coupler. Then we connect the 2 hoses together so that they don't get ice or dirt or anything like that in them. Simply pull back on the connector. Then we take the hose and lay it up here so it don't fall down and get broken. The next thing we're going to do, you can look here, is we're going to utilize the hydraulic quick coupler on the loader to disconnect the broom. Now that we have the hoses disconnected, the legs are down, we're going to now take the broom off. The cylinder is now in. He rotates it forward as he lets it down. And then he starts to back out and rotates it away from him. He backs out. The broom's sitting here on the 4 legs. Hydraulic hose is up here. And as you can see, the pins are disconnected now. He disconnected the pins back as if he was hooking onto the next attachment. Next, we're gonna learn how to operate a snow pusher. So this here is a 16-foot snow pusher. And the main thing when you're operating a snow pusher is making sure that the attachment is running level with the ground. So when I say level, I'm wanting these runners right here to operate dead level with the concrete. So as he's letting it down, you can see the front's touching first. Now he's leveling it. So the back's a little higher. So I'm gonna ask him to tilt the back down just a little bit. Now down. So this is the way the detachment needs to run. What that does is it makes this rubber edge across the front not wear, it wears correctly when we do that. So, and it doesn't wear these runners out. So the main thing when you're operating a snow pusher is to make sure that they're running level. As you can see, that is level. Even if you need to get out and you think you got it set in level, and then you get out and check it. But a lot of times I'll put my back down and then I'll rotate it forward until I see a little pressure. So Rick, if you'll lift it up a little bit, rotate it back a hair, let it down, and then rotate it forward till you feel a little bit of pressure on the front. A little more, a little more. Yep, you see how it's relaxed? That means you're ready to go push snow, okay? So the other thing is with a snow pusher is we never back up with a snow pusher down because that rips the rubber off on the bottom of it. So we always go forward with snow pusher. If we're backing up, we lift the snow pusher up. The next thing that I see a lot of mistakes is that I see people operating a loader, they put too much pressure on the pusher and their front tires come off the ground. So you always want to make sure that your tires are 100% on the ground. This is the incorrect operation because you're going to be wearing something out at the time. So always make sure that the tires are all on the ground and your snow pusher is level. As I said, this is a 16-foot snow pusher. So we've got to be very precautious that we are basically double the width of the machine everywhere we go. So around the tugs, around other loaders, around other airplanes or anything, these are wide obstacles on the front of this loader. You got to be paying attention when you're going forward and backward with this very wide apparatus on the front. Take extra precautions at all times. The next thing we're going to do is teach you how to use the hydraulic quick coupler from the in-cab operation. So in order to operate this, we must have our hydraulics engaged. This button over here on the left side of the steering wheel with the safety mechanism on it. We push it down, we listen for that to beep. Then we use our joystick to rotate to the left. Once we rotate to the left, you're gonna see the hydraulic cylinders disconnect. So I'll do that again for you. See, the pins are pulled in now. Pins are pulled in. And then at this point, so we got to keep that thing disconnected. And then we will hook up the attachment that we want. While we're picking the attachment up, we'll hold down on the button, turn, rotate this back. You will feel the thing come into place. Let off the button. Push over on the hydraulic lever to the left to re-engage the cylinder pins. And then we always double check by applying forward pressure on the pusher that the pins are engaged. Additionally, we'd like for you to get out and check visually that the pins have been engaged. Once again, to disconnect, we'll repeat the same steps. The tool is currently locked on with the hydraulic coupler. So we're going to press the lock disengagement, press the switch forward. While it's beeping, continue to hold on the switch. Rotate toward the back with pressing to the left. Disengages it, continue to hold the button, and then rotate the attachment off. And then your attachment's free to go. Once you're away from the attachment, you can let go of the button. Another neat feature of these WA270 loaders is the backup camera, but we don't want to be 100% reliant on the backup camera, but it makes a good reference point. But always when backing up, to double check behind you both ways. With these large hoods in the back, it's nice to be able to utilize turning around and looking and using the backup camera. A couple other things in the cab, your windshield wipers are located on the right side for the rear window, are located on the internal switch, and it also is the cleaning function is holding this. The front wipers are on the outside of the switch on the right side of the steering wheel. And if you want to have windshield washer fluid, you press forward, press on the outside of that switch like that to clean your window. Your air control, air conditioning, and defrost and heat controls are all located here in the blue. To press the defroster, you press this. This operates your fan level. When finished operating, simply turn your parking brake on and turn your key off. Always allow for every machine to cool down after running for approximately 1 minute after running at a high RPM. Let it idle for at least 1 minute in order for the turbo to cool off. In regards to lights inside the cab, there's 3 switches that turn the lights on. So you have your switch here for your front lights. Additionally, you have your work lights and your back lights here, and your flashers here. So it initially takes four switches in order to turn all the lights on. Work lights, rear lights, flashers, and your regular headlights. A couple other notes. Remember, finally, when you're operating a broom with a loader, not to put too much pressure on the broom, and always make sure every 2 hours you rotate the angle direction. Whenever you rotate the angle direction, make sure the rest of your crew, the other loaders and the dump truck operators with the plows on, they switch rotation too. That way everybody's going the same direction on the ramp. Always note that on ramps, they're not traditionally like most roadways. Usually the left and right sides are usually opposite directions. So always pay attention to your directional arrows prior to the snow, because once the snow is covering up the arrows, you won't know which direction the roadways go. And a lot of times we're driving on the left side of the roadway at UPS, so we need to pay attention to what side of the roadway we're driving on. When we're operating the snow pusher, remember to always keep your wheels on the ground and to always make sure the snow box is level. Whenever you're utilizing a bucket to load snow, one thing that commonly happens when snow freezes and you overload the bucket and you go to load a truck, large chunks of ice can come back and hit the window and bust the windshield out. So always be careful to sprinkle off the extra hunks of snow on top of the bucket so that it don't come back on your window and bust through the window. This concludes our training on the WA270 for snow attachments.